Have you ever considered that the date of your birth might be more than a mark on a calendar, more than just a line of numbers dividing one season from the next? To most, the calendar is simply practical, a tool to organize appointments, mark holidays, and plan the rhythm of everyday life. But for Marie-Louise von Franz, the cycle of the year, its months, its seasons, its flow from dark to light and back again held profound symbolic meaning. She didn't look at time as a rigid measure but as a living myth, a container of archetypal energies that speak directly to the psyche. Von Franz, a close collaborator of Carl Jung, brought to life the invisible threads that connect us to symbolic reality. In her view, nothing in the inner or outer world is random. Birth, especially, is never an accident of timing. The moment you enter the world is saturated with meaning, resonant with the psychological tone of that season, its light, its mood, its mythic character. Just as fairy tales hold keys to universal truths hidden beneath their simple language, so too does the calendar, if read correctly, offer clues to the soul's unique journey. The birth month is not destiny. It does not dictate who you must become, but it is a symbolic imprint, an echo of the psychic climate you were born into. Von Franz understood time cyclically, not linearly. The year begins not just with January, but with silence, depth, and renewal. Each month that follows is a step in a larger unfolding, a mythic arc, mirroring the human path toward individuation, the process of becoming whole. This way of seeing bypasses superstition. It doesn't ask us to believe in omens or predictions. Instead, it invites a deeper kind of listening to the rhythms of nature, to the images that rise from the unconscious, to the hidden stories encoded in time itself. A person born in April is not simply an Aries or a spring baby, but someone whose soul stepped into the world during a time of awakening, of rising energy, of initiation, that matters. To begin to interpret the month of your birth through von Franz as symbolic lens is to step into an ancient conversation between nature and psyche. It's not about labels, it's about pattern recognition, about noticing how time leaves its fingerprints on your inner landscape. This book is not a manual for categorizing people, but an invitation to look more closely at your own story, to consider the month you were born not as a coincidence, but as a clue door into deeper understanding. The cycle of the year is, in many ways, a mirror of the soul's path, from emergence to flowering, to harvest, to descent, to rebirth. Each birth month contains a resonance within that mythic cycle. The question is not what your month means, but what it's asking you to remember. January arrives, not with fireworks, but with quiet. It carries the stillness of a snow-covered landscape, the hush of the world turned inward. To be born in January is to be marked by this atmosphere of introspection, of slow beginnings, of inner structure building before outer bloom. Marie-Louise von Franz would see such a birth not as a coincidence of winter, but as an initiation into a deeper psychological rhythm, the rhythm of the hermit and the alchemist. This is not the hermit who escapes the world out of fear, but the one who seeks solitude because that is where true vision begins. In January, nature sleeps. Nothing is blooming, yet, beneath the surface, the roots are alive. There is work being done in the silence, invisible, yet essential. Likewise, those born in this month often carry a quiet strength, an ability to endure long seasons of preparation without needing applause or validation. They are shaped by time, not in haste, but in the slow forging of character. Von Franz often spoke of the value of containment, the inner vessel in which transformation takes place. The January soul understands this instinctively. They build their lives from the inside out, often mature beyond their years, often misunderstood in their preference for solitude or depth. There is wisdom here, but it comes at a cost. The inner world can become a fortress, and the gift of emotional distance can become a burden of isolation, if not met with awareness. Time is the central teacher for those born in January, not just chronological time, but psychological time, learning when to wait, when to act, when to let something die, and when to rebuild. These individuals often carry a natural relationship with discipline and responsibility, not out of duty but because they are tuned to what lasts. There is a melancholic beauty in them, a gravity that others may not always understand but often turn to in moments of crisis. They are the quiet architects of emotional structure, the ones who know how to endure the winter because they see the spring inside it. But the shadow of this archetype is the risk of becoming too hidden, too walled off. The same instincts that protect them from chaos can also keep out joy. Von Franz would remind us that the inner life, while sacred, must eventually be brought into contact with the outer world. The alchemical vessel must be opened, shared. For the January soul, this means learning to trust not only their inner structures, but the vulnerability of connection. To be born in January is to carry the seed of the sage, the builder, the one who waits. And if that seed is tended with patience and care, it does not simply survive, it becomes a foundation upon which others find their footing. February does not announce itself loudly. It slips between seasons, belonging neither to winter's full grip nor to the promise of spring. There is something restless in it, something uncontained. To be born in February is to carry a particular kind of energy, unpredictable, electric, and touched by the archetype von Franz would recognize as the trickster visionary. These are the souls born not to follow paths, but to question them, to invent new ways of seeing when the old ones no longer suffice. Marie-Louise von Franz understood the trickster not as mere chaos, but as sacred disruption, a figure who shakes the foundations so that something more honest can emerge. Those born in February often carry within them this disruptive clarity. They are not content with surface answers or inherited truths. Their minds reach beyond the present moment, imagining futures others have not yet dared to conceive. This is not always comfortable for them or for the world around them. Their gift is insight, but their burden is often loneliness. These individuals move differently. They do not grow in straight lines. There's a spark in them that resists conformity, not out of arrogance, but from a deep inner demand to remain authentic, even if it means standing alone. In childhood, they may be misunderstood, seen as aloof or difficult to pin down, but beneath their distance often lies a vibrant inner world, a realm of ideas, symbols, dreams that shimmer with the future. Von Franz would say they live close to the archetypal layer of the psyche, where the symbolic breaks through the literal and where truth wears strange masks. But with vision comes risk. The shadow of February is coldness, the tendency to retreat so far into mind or imagination that connection becomes fragile. They may grow accustomed to alienation, preferring detachment over vulnerability. The same intellect that allows them to see so clearly can become a shield, keeping the world at a safe but lonely distance. The challenge is not to tame the wild thought, but to ground it, to find ways of weaving their originality into something others can feel and touch. Yet, when the February-born soul learns this balance between rebellion and relationship, between innovation and embodiment, they become remarkable guides. They speak truths others are not yet ready to hear, and though their path may be solitary, it is never meaningless. Their presence is often a catalyst, not always comfortable, but always necessary. To be born in February is to carry a vision that doesn't yet have a name, and the task, as von Franz might say, is not to silence it, but to make a home for it in a world that still believes in straight lines. March is a threshold, a liminal space where the old dissolves and something new stirs beneath the surface. It does not arrive all at once, but flickers in moments, the light returning, the air softening, the earth waking slowly from its winter sleep. To be born in March is to emerge into this in-between, to carry within oneself the mood of beginnings that are not yet fully formed. Marie-Louise von Franz would recognize in this birth a soul tuned to the subtle rhythms of transition, a psyche shaped by both the fading stillness of winter and the first bloom of spring. This is the time of the child of renewal, not a child in age or naivety, but in essence, in the deep ability to begin again. March-born individuals often hold a delicate kind of strength. Their sensitivity is not weakness, but a capacity to feel what others miss. Undercurrents of emotion, symbolic echoes, the quiet voices of the unconscious. There is a natural intuition here, a porousness to the world that allows them to absorb its moods, its joys, and also its sorrows. They live close to the dream world, and their creativity often blooms not from mastery but from surrender. Von Franz understood that transitions are sacred. They are where the psyche is most alive, most vulnerable, and most full of possibility. Those born in March often carry this transitional energy their entire lives, never quite one thing, always becoming. This can be a gift, as they are often adaptable, empathetic, and deeply imaginative. But it also carries a shadow. In constantly becoming, they may struggle to know who they are. The boundary between self and other blurs. Identity becomes fluid, and in times of emotional intensity, it can feel as though the world flows through them unchecked. Emotional flooding, the loss of containment, is the danger. These are individuals who can be swept away by their own depths, if they have not learned how to root themselves. The work, then, is not to harden against sensitivity, but to find structure that can hold it. Like the river needs its banks, the March soul needs grounding not to restrict, but to protect the flow. There is something quietly mystical about those born in this month. Their presence often brings a softening to the world around them, a reminder of what is tender, what is possible, what is yet to be born. They don't push life forward, they invite it in. And in that invitation, transformation begins, not loudly, but deeply. To be born in March is to carry spring in your soul, even when the world feels cold. And just as the earth renews itself each year without being told how, so to do these souls carry the quiet wisdom of returning again and again to the light within. April does not whisper. It arrives with motion, with color, with the sudden insistence of life breaking through what once seemed frozen. It is the month of beginnings, but not gentle ones beginnings that crack open the ground, that demand movement and stir the will into action. To be born in April is to carry this fierce awakening within. There is urgency here, an inner fire that pushes forward, often before the path is clear. Marie-Louise von Franz might have seen in this birth the early stirrings of the initiate warrior, the archetype called not to comfort, but to confrontation. The April-born soul does not arrive quietly into life. Even in childhood, there is a sense of striving, of pressing up against limits. This energy is raw but sacred. It is the life force before it is refined, the will before it is tempered. These individuals often move quickly toward goals, toward truth, toward whatever calls them to feel alive. They are courageous, often without knowing it, because they are compelled not by calculation but by instinct. Von Franz understood that this instinct, when integrated, becomes the engine of transformation. But when unconscious, it risks burning more than it builds. There is a beautiful clarity to those born in April, refusal to pretend, a directness that cuts through ambiguity. They are initiators, starters, ones who do not wait for permission to move. But every archetype casts a shadow. For the warrior, it is the temptation of ego, the belief that force alone can shape reality. The danger lies in moving too fast, acting without reflection, or using strength to control rather than to serve. The first battle is often not with the world, but with the self. The confrontation with the shadow is essential for April-born individuals. That drive, if unexamined, can become restlessness or even destruction. But if faced with honesty, it becomes something far more powerful, purpose. Von Franz believed that true strength is never just about will, but about the integration of inner opposites. The warrior must become aware of what lies beneath their striving, what fear, what longing, what image of the self they are trying to live up to or outrun. Yet, when balanced, there is nobility here. The April soul carries within it the seed of the sacred battle not for dominance, but for authenticity. They are often leaders, not because they seek control, but because others are drawn to their clarity, their fire, their refusal to hide. They remind the world that life requires courage, that becoming whole demands risk. To be born in April is to carry the spirit of the beginning, the moment the world shifts from sleep to motion. It is not an easy path, but it is a vital one. The warrior must learn not just to fight, but to know what is worth fighting for. In that knowing, they begin the real journey not outward, but inward. May unfolds gently, like petals opening under steady sunlight. It does not rush. Its rhythm is slow, deliberate, grounded in the pleasures of what can be seen, touched, tasted. To be born in May is to arrive under the influence of fullness, not the explosive birth of spring's beginning, but the flowering that comes when things are given time to root and grow. In the eyes of Marie-Louise von Franz, this birth reflects the archetype of the earthly artisan, the one who shapes life with their hands, their senses, and their unwavering devotion to what is real. These souls are not drawn to the abstract. They come alive in contact with the earth, with beauty, with the slow rituals that bring comfort and meaning. There is something ancient in their nature, a memory of seasons and cycles and the wisdom of waiting. Von Franz saw this kind of rootedness not as limitation, but as a sacred form of presence. The Mayborn understand how to inhabit life rather than chase it. They build what lasts because they trust the process of becoming. There is a sensual intelligence to them, a knowing that resides in the body as much as in the mind. They are often drawn to what nourishes: food, art, nature, love. Their loyalty runs deep, not out of obligation, but out of resonance. They stay with what feels true. This patience is their strength, their quiet refusal to be hurried by a world that prizes speed. But the same instinct for stability can harden into fear. The shadow here is stagnation, the reluctance to change what feels safe even when it no longer serves. May-born individuals may struggle with the unknown, with the disorientation that comes when life pulls them into unfamiliar terrain. They may cling to routine, to relationships, to beliefs that have outlived their purpose. Von Franz might say that the challenge for these souls is to remember that even the earth must be tilled. Even the most beautiful garden must be disturbed to make room for new growth. Change does not always mean destruction, it can be the next act of devotion. Yet, when in balance, the gift of the earthly artisan is their ability to anchor others. In a world spinning with abstraction, they bring us back to the moment, to the smell of bread baking, to the weight of a hand held in silence, to the steady work of tending something meaningful. They remind us that spirit lives in matter, and that beauty, when made with care, becomes a form of prayer. To be born in May is to carry the wisdom of slowness, of loyalty, of creation that takes its time. It is to be a lover of what is tangible and true. And in a culture that often forgets the sacredness of the simple, these souls are the keepers of what truly nourishes. June arrives with brightness and movement. The days stretch long, filled with light that seems to touch everything at once. It is a time of motion, of voices rising, of questions multiplying. To be born in June is to come into the world through a doorway of curiosity, with the air alive with possibility. Marie-Louise von Franz would recognize in this birth the energy of the messenger seeker, the one who listens, who questions, who carries messages between worlds without staying too long in any one of them. Those born in June often have the gift of quickness, not just of thought, but of perception. They are attuned to nuance, to patterns, to the invisible threads that connect ideas, people, and meanings. Conversation is not idle for them, it is exploration. They gather and share, not to control, but because they feel driven to understand, to communicate, to translate what seems disconnected into something whole. There is something mercurial in them, a lightness that belies the depth beneath. Von Franz often emphasized the importance of living with opposites, not resolving them, but holding them in tension. The June-born live this naturally. They are rarely one thing. Their minds and hearts move in multiple directions at once. This can be a gift and ability to see from many perspectives, but it can also become a source of conflict. Ambivalence runs through them like a current. Decision can feel like loss, and in trying to keep all options open, they may sometimes forget to choose. The shadow of this archetype is not lack of depth, but the fear of stillness. When everything is in motion, nothing has to settle. June-born individuals may dance across the surface of life, endlessly stimulated, yet strangely untouched. They can become masterful at appearing connected while quietly evading intimacy. The work, as von Franz might suggest, is to let their multiplicity deepen rather than scatter, to understand that integration is not the loss of variety, but the soul's way of bringing many voices into one true song. Yet when they learn to hold their contradictions with care, something luminous happens. The June soul becomes a bridge between thoughts and feelings, between people and ideas, between what is and what might be. They make extraordinary teachers, writers, and friends because they do not speak from certainty, but from wonder. Their openness is not confusion, but trust that truth is larger than a single answer. To be born in June is to be a mirror reflecting not just what is, but what could be. It is to carry the gift of movement, not for escape, but for discovery. And when that discovery becomes grounded in the heart, not just the mind, it transforms from restlessness into a kind of grace, a rhythm that invites the world to keep learning, keep listening, keep becoming. July arrives in warmth, wrapped in the fullness of summer, when the world feels ripe and alive and the days stretch wide with light. There is a softness in this month, but it is not weakness, it is the softness of shelter, of holding, of the deep stillness that allows something fragile to grow. To be born in July is to enter life through the gate of feeling, through the realm of emotional memory and invisible bonds. Marie-Louise von Franz would see in this soul the archetype of the mother caretaker, not in the narrow sense of biology, but as the guardian of what is inner, what is sacred, what must be protected in order to live. These are the ones who feel in layers, who carry not only their own emotions but the echoes of those around them. They listen without needing words. They sense the unsaid. There is something ancient in the awareness of lineage, of roots, of the silent stories passed down from generation to generation. Von Franz often spoke of the unconscious inheritance we carry, the emotional DNA shaped long before we are born. The July soul walks with this inheritance close, sometimes too close, as though the past has a hand on their shoulder at all times. They are the ones who remember birthdays, who sense when someone is hurting, who hold space when others cannot. There is a quiet strength in them, a kind of emotional backbone that others lean on without even realizing it. Their instinct is to nurture, to protect, to create a world where the heart is safe. But this instinct, if left unchecked, can become overgrown. The same love that comforts can also suffocate. The shadow of the July born is not cruelty, but overextension, giving so much of themselves that nothing is left. Love becomes duty, and duty becomes self-erasure. They may confuse their worth with their usefulness, their identity with their role as caretaker. They may hold pain that is not theirs, carry burdens that were never meant to be theirs to bear. The work, as von Franz might say, is to separate the vessel from what it holds, to know that they are more than what they provide. Their emotional intelligence is not meant to trap them in cycles of overgiving, but to lead them deeper into true intimacy, which always includes the self. When balanced, their love becomes a sanctuary, not a cage. They are the hearth in the center of chaos, the memory that heals, the arms that remind us we are not alone. To be born in July is to carry the sacred art of holding not only others, but oneself. And when they learn that tenderness does not require self-sacrifice, they become a quiet force in the world, radiating a kind of love that does not demand, but simply is. August does not whisper. It stands tall, drenched in sunlight, commanding attention without asking for it. It is a time of full ripeness, of things revealed in their most radiant form. To be born in August is to arrive with a sense of destiny and inner knowledge, often unspoken, that one's presence carries weight. Marie-Louise von Franz would have recognized this as the archetype of the king or queenish Götter, not in the worldly sense of control, but in the deeper realm of psychological sovereignty, the one called to lead, to embody a personal myth, and to live it with dignity. These souls often shine without trying. They carry a kind of gravity, a natural charisma that draws others into their orbit. There is something about them that feels larger than life, even when they are quiet. It is not always confidence. They, too, have doubts, but there is a core in them that knows. They are meant to stand upright, to speak from the center of their being. Von Franz might say they carry the myth of the ruler not as a role to be performed, but as an invitation to become the most honest version of the self. Leadership for them is not about control, but about vision. They are initiators of meaning, carriers of purpose, often stepping into roles where others look to them for guidance, even when they never ask to be followed. Their challenge is to lead not from the wound, but from the whole. For the shadow of this archetype is subtle. Ego can inflict, pride can protect, and the need to be seen can quietly eclipse the need to be real. Fear of failure, though rarely admitted, often haunts these individuals. They may wear strength like armor, not to deceive, but to survive the weight of expectation. And when they fall hard, because to fall from high ground is not just painful, it is disorienting. Yet this fall, as von Franz often explored in myth and story, is essential. The true king or queen must descend before they can truly rule. The crown is not inherited, it is earned through the fire of humility. Those born in August are here to remember their power, but also to refine it, not through domination, but through service, not through spectacle, but through presence. When they move from ego to essence, from performance to authenticity, they become radiant without casting shadows on others. They ignite without burning. They lead not from above, but from within. To be born in August is to carry the fire of identity, the call to live one's life as if it matters, because it does. And when that fire is tended with care and truth, it becomes more than charisma. It becomes a light others can walk by. A fire not of conquest, but of purpose. February does not announce itself loudly. It slips between seasons, belonging neither to winter's full grip nor to the promise of spring. There is something restless in it, something uncontained. To be born in February is to carry a particular kind of energy, unpredictable, electric, and touched by the archetype von Franz would recognize as the trickster visionary. These are the souls born not to follow paths, but to question them, to invent new ways of seeing when the old ones no longer suffice. Marie-Louise von Franz understood the trickster not as mere chaos, but as sacred disruption, a figure who shakes the foundations so that something more honest can emerge. Those born in February often carry within them this disruptive clarity. They are not content with surface answers or inherited truths. Their minds reach beyond the present moment, imagining futures others have not yet dared to conceive. This is not always comfortable for them or for the world around them. Their gift is insight, but their burden is often loneliness. These individuals move differently. They do not grow in straight lines. There's a spark in them that resists conformity, not out of arrogance, but from a deep inner demand to remain authentic, even if it means standing alone. In childhood, they may be misunderstood, seen as aloof or difficult to pin down, but beneath their distance often lies a vibrant inner world, a realm of ideas, symbols, dreams that shimmer with the future. Von Franz would say, they live close to the archetypal layer of the psyche, where the symbolic breaks through the literal and where truth wears strange masks. But with vision comes risk. The shadow of February is coldness, the tendency to retreat so far into mind or imagination that connection becomes fragile. They may grow accustomed to alienation, preferring detachment over vulnerability. The same intellect that allows them to see so clearly can become a shield, keeping the world at a safe but lonely distance. The challenge is not to tame the wild thought, but to ground it, to find ways of weaving their originality into something others can feel and touch. Yet, when the February-born soul learns this balance between rebellion and relationship, between innovation and embodiment, they become remarkable guides. They speak truths others are not yet ready to hear, and though their path may be solitary, it is never meaningless. Their presence is often a catalyst, not always comfortable, but always necessary. To be born in February is to carry a vision that doesn't yet have a name, and the task, as von Franz might say, is not to silence it, but to make a home for it in a world that still believes in straight lines. A concept, but a psychological necessity. The October soul knows this instinctively. They crave balance, not as control, but as alignment. Their lives are often spent trying to reconcile what appears to be an opposition, self and other, desire and duty, truth and kindness. This balancing act is their gift, but also their burden, for in seeking peace, they may sometimes silence themselves. The shadow of this archetype is not dishonesty, but self-erasure. They may avoid conflict to preserve the peace, only to find that something essential within has gone quiet. Authenticity can feel risky to them, especially when it disrupts the delicate web they work so hard to maintain. But real beauty, as von Franz would suggest, comes from wholeness, not from smoothing out every edge, but from allowing contrast to speak. The artist-judge must learn that discord is not the enemy of harmony, but often its gateway. That standing in one's truth, even when it shakes the structure, is part of the deeper balance they were born to serve. When these souls come into alignment with themselves, they radiate a rare kind of grace. Their presence soothes, not because it is passive, but because it carries the weight of thought, care, and discernment. They remind others that relationships are sacred ground, and that beauty, whether in art, in words, or in silence, is a form of truth. To be born in October is to carry the aesthetic soul, the one who listens for symmetry even in the chaos. And when they find the courage to be both mirror and flame, they become not only artists of the world, but judges of the heart, guiding others gently back to what is real. November enters with a hush, a thinning of the veil. The leaves have fallen, the earth begins its inward turn, and everything speaks in symbols. It is a time of endings, but also of deep beginnings, of decay that reveals hidden life, of darkness that does not destroy but transforms. To be born in November is to belong to this depth, to carry the mark of the alchemist transformer, the one called not to remain on the surface, but to walk boldly into the fire of inner change. Marie-Louise von Franz would have seen this as a month saturated in psychic intensity, where the soul is shaped not through comfort, but through confrontation with the real. Those born in November often feel things others cannot name. There is something inward, even secretive, about their nature, an inner landscape shaped by mystery, by the knowledge that what is seen is never all there is. They are not content with appearances. They ask the deeper questions, and they will not look away when the answers come cloaked in pain. This depth does not mean they are somber. It means they are brave. They are willing to face the underworld of the psyche, to undergo death in order to be reborn. Von Franz knew that transformation is not poetic, it is rigorous. It strips away illusion, ego, false identity. November-born individuals often live through intense cycles of loss and emergence. They know what it is to be undone, to be brought low, to be remade, and because of this, they carry a kind of power not loud, not showy, but undeniable. They are the ones others turn to in moments of truth, because they have walked through fire and emerged, not untouched, but more real. Yet, this archetype carries a dangerous shadow. The one who transforms must also resist the temptation to control. When the soul becomes too familiar with power, especially the power of insight, of seduction, of emotional depth, may begin to manipulate rather than heal. Or, in fear of the depths, it may withdraw entirely, refusing surrender and clinging to defenses that once served but now imprison. The danger is obsession, either with control or with the fear of losing it. But when the November soul accepts the descent as sacred, not shameful, the alchemy begins. What was shadow becomes gold. What was broken becomes medicine. They do not just change themselves, they open space for others to change as well. Their presence carries the weight of lived transformation, and through them, others remember that healing is never linear, is cyclical, like the seasons, like death followed always by new life. To be born in November is to walk with the underworld at your back and the stars in your chest. It is to burn, yes, but also to rise, not for spectacle, but for truth. And in that rising, you become not just a survivor, but a guide, a keeper of the sacred fire.